It is time. My copy of Sunrise on the Reaping actually arrived the day that the books came out, but it's 6 days post-publication, and I am apparently really behind the bell curve. It's honestly not that surprising because of how feral the Hunger Games fandom can get, rightfully so. I wanted to do a buddy read of this with my girlfriend, and she's already done. So I need to catch up so I don't get spoiled online, because I fear that I will soon enough. I've already heard one that it feels kind of like fan fiction because there's so many like callbacks to previous games and previous books, but it's a prequel. I don't know. When the movie for the first prequel came out, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I then got into reading the book so many years later, and I was like, why didn't I read this in 2020? I was working at Barnes & Noble around when it was coming out, and it's so good, but I'm glad that I got on when I did, because these prequels are fantastic. So I have high hopes for this. I feel like Suzanne Collins is going to show different aspects of the world and the capital and the games. I feel like we're going to learn so much more about Haymitch as a character. Obviously, we're following him in his games, and just the world and his complex trauma and everything like that. Without further ado, I'm horribly behind. I need to read this. Let's read chapter 1. Is it just me, or do you guys also take the dust covers off your hardcovers when you're reading them so that it doesn't get damaged? I can go right there. Ooh, okay. We have the continuation from the other prequel where there's a bunch of epigraphs. We got quotes by George Orwell, William Blake, David Hume, and another David Hume quote. Interesting. A truth that's told with bad intent beats all the lies you can invent. William Blake. Alright, part 1, the birthday. Did we already know that his birthday was Reaping Day? I feel like reading the little blurb about what the book is about, that's how I first learned this, but honestly, so fitting. He had a brother? It's very interesting reading now 3 different people's perspectives about District 12, because we've had Katniss, we've had Snow, and then in the movie we obviously had Lucy Gray, and now we have Haymitch. As someone who's actually from the region where District 12 is, like I grew up here, granted, District 12 is very much Western Virginia in Appalachia. I'm east of Appalachia, but this is still my home state, my home region. I identify with aspects of it, not as heavily as people who grew up in Appalachia did. I'm not going to claim that identity, but I have some affinity with it. It's just interesting reading about this dystopian view of the land and the culture and the people in a place where I know, am familiar with, and like regions that I've been to. It's just a different experience than if you've never been to this area or have no connection to it. I don't know how it took me until page 5 to gather that Lenore Dove was Covey. It makes sense, double name, Lenore Dove. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I reread all of the Hunger Games books before reading the first prequel. There is 0 mention of the Covey in the original trilogy. I'm wondering if after the 50th games, because everyone that Haymitch loves is going to be killed, which is very sad, I'm wondering if the Capitol kills off all the members of the Covey after the 50th games, because Snow is like the Covey, Lucy Gray Baird, they need to all die, because never heard of them before the first prequel, so... You know what I just realized? The timeline. Okay, so I was thinking about how it's interesting with the timeline that in each book, the next important player isn't even alive yet, but I'm just now realizing, because Lucy Gray Baird won the 10th Hunger Games, and then Haymitch is 16 in the 50th Hunger Games. It's been 40 years since Lucy Gray Baird, and then he's 40 in Katniss's and Peeta's first games. I imagine that had to have been intentional, but I guess what it kind of says is like, it's a generation of time, because the average human lifespan is around 80-ish years, so in a generation. So Lenore Dove is named half for the shade of gray, like Lucy Gray. I'm sure Snow loved that. Ooh, don't fall. Gotta be careful. You're blocking my view, Kiki. Thank you. I'm just now noticing the symbolism and the colors. Purple and yellow are commonly paired together for royalty, and I just think that that's so perfect for Haymitch, because he is coming from poverty and anything but royalty, and then he's going to be forced into royalty because he wins the games, but he's not really going to be royalty because he has no control, and everyone he loves is going to die. So it's like the sick play on royalty of, you're going to get everything you ever wanted, but also you're going to be alone and have to watch children die every year. Suzanne Collins. She's a genius. So interesting to see the difference between singing and music and everything compared to how Lucy Gray Baird would sing in and around the time of the 10th Hunger Games, and now we're in the 50th Hunger Games. It just goes to show that after 40 more years of this, they've been under this regime for 50 years. The people are a lot more scared and frightened, and they've grown up in this. They don't know life before this, and Haymitch's mother is 35. She doesn't even know a life before this. This authoritarian regime has now settled in and made itself home in this country to these people living in it. It feels like the absolute truth. There is nothing else to consider. This is what they have experienced and this is what they know. But talking about singing being too rebellious, it could cause a ruckus. It's just so different and such a distinct change from 40 years ago. And with Lenore Dove being a Baird, it's just things have changed. Snow has changed District 12 and probably the entire nation a lot in these 40 years. So much talk of the future, just after the reaping we'll do this, after the reaping we'll do that, tonight we'll do this, and I'll show you how to use the striker, and next year maybe eventually there won't be a reaping on your birthday, and it's just leading up to, of course he's not gonna go to the reaping and nothing's gonna be the same ever again, but Jesus Christ, oh my god, it's so sad. Town girls don't marry seam boys, just like how town boys don't marry seam girls. Very clever, Suzanne. And if Sid should ask, but why do I have to do this? We can only say, because this is the way things are. The regime is imprinted within the very core of their understanding of reality. They cannot fathom that there is another way of living a life without the Hunger Games. It's just so interesting to see that they're, I don't want to say rolling over, but they are accepting that this is what their life is. It's defeating. It is a defeatist attitude, but it is completely understandable because it's been going on for 50 years. How do you get out of it? Wait, I'm sorry, are we talking to Katniss's father? Her friends know about you, Everdeen? And then Burdock responds, is this Burdock Everdeen? Is this Katniss's dad? It would make sense. What else would it be? But, huh? Well, that's the end of chapter 1. Haymitch was this close to not being reaped. And someone else was fucking murdered because he tried to run away. Alright, on to chapter 2. This line here, automatically, I fall on my knees and assume the position. These introductory chapters are really cementing why Haymitch is the way he is. He has a very defeatist external locus of control that we can see throughout the Hunger Games trilogy, but especially in the first one before they've won. He does not believe that he has any capability of changing his outlook. So of course, this assume the position. He knows what to do when the capital is going to come down on you and rain gunfire, hellfire on you. He does not believe that he is able to change his position, and he just doesn't see a way for life to be any different than what it is now. He thinks that it will always be what it is. There will always be a reaping day on his birthday, and 2 children will always die. It's just fascinating to see the psychology of someone that is believing this, and why wouldn't they? They were raised in it. I don't like the way that Haymitch was reaped. I mean, I know that, like, the capital controls everything and that they get to decide who gets reaped ultimately, but, like, the fact that Haymitch went to go protect someone, and then they were like, you're gonna be the new boy now, kind of lame that he wasn't just reaped the old-fashioned way, but I guess that, you know, Prim was reaped, Katniss volunteered, and now Haymitch volunteered in his own way. I think that that's kind of what the author's trying to point at, but it's more so that obviously the capital controls everything, even though this was a heat-of-the-moment decision and came on because someone else was killed. I have thoughts. Wow, he doesn't get a goodbye. They better be alive when he... Oh, I don't know what's better. I don't know if it's better that they're alive when he gets back or if they're dead. Okay, Plutarch is both the MVP and the asshole in the scene for letting Haymitch say goodbye to his family, but, like, I understand you want tragedy porn, but, like, these are real people's lives and real reactions that you're now trying to coax out of them so that you can see their horror and their fear and their confusion to their son going off to the Hunger Games where he will presumably die. And you want to do multiple takes? It's just tragic and goes to show that the people in the capital view all people in the districts as beasts, as animals, and less than human. They're merely creatures for their amusement, and it is depressing to see. Oh, at the moment our heart's shattered, it belongs to us. Ah! 2 chapters in, and I'm not disappointed in the slightest. My God, I turned off the camera for a bit to just read, and now Mo's here. He's sleepy. I'm in chapter 6, and I'm loving how much of a focus we're getting on propaganda and the creation of propaganda, and how aware Haymitch is that he is propaganda. When he left, his mom reminded him of something that his late father had told a previous tribute. Don't let them use you, essentially. Despite Haymitch's very clear external locus of control and belief that the world cannot be changed, the capital is all powerful and I cannot do anything to change it, he still is resisting. It makes total sense, but it's beautiful to see that despite not having any wind in his sails, he still has fight in his soul and is willing to resist in small ways against the authoritarian regime in which he has been raised under. As far as what's actually happening in the book, Luella just fucking died. I knew she was gonna die early on in the games. I didn't expect her to die before the games even started. There were too many lines of, "You're my ally," and "It's you and me to the end, and we got this," and it's like a firework going off and scaring the horses and running into another chariot was not how I expected Luella to go, but it is neat to see that Haymitch took this as an opportunity to show his resistance again, and ran and saw Snow in the flesh and just held the dead body, put her down, and then clapped. I like that Snow is again being portrayed as this mysteriously powerful, stoic person, because I'm sure that I know what he's thinking. He's thinking of this, oh, these foul animals, these beasts. This is humanity at its core. It's humanity laid bare. And he just thinks so little of the people from the districts, so it's just interesting to now have that context from the first prequel to now reading this one and seeing him how he was portrayed in the original trilogy again. Okay, I've been reading for hours. The sun has set, but I just got to the start of chapter 8. I'm gonna wrap up my reading here today. I was thinking maybe I would just read like 3 chapters, and now I'm a quarter of the way through the book in one reading session, so good job, Suzanne. As usual, you have written crack. I cannot put it down. To wrap up my thoughts after reading most of part 1, it is interesting how Haymitch demonstrates this very clear external locus of control in the first couple chapters, and then almost drastically switches to, I am going to resist. I refuse to be a cog in the propaganda machine. It almost feels a little too drastic. I feel like he should be a little bit more defeatist. The change in attitude is appropriate and like who I want him to be, but I feel like he should be more conflicted within himself and feeling like, well, I'm just gonna die anyways, so what does it matter? Which he does say occasionally, but I want him to say it more. I want him to feel more defeated, but yet still resisting what the capital is doing. I'm curious how it's going to shift and how things are going to go for his games and how he's going to be perceiving everything and planning and strategizing, because he is very intelligent. That comes off eventually in the original trilogy. I am looking forward to learning more about Haymitch because he is a very intriguing character. Much more southern than I feel like he comes off as in the original trilogy. It's appropriate, it makes sense, he's from Appalachia, but it's like almost like playing it up a little bit. Anyhow, I will see you guys soon for more reading. Welcome back to day 2 of reading The Sunrise on the Reaping. So I did read 2 chapters off camera. I read 1 chapter last night as I was going to bed, and then the other chapter today during my break at work. And overall, thoughts are, intrigued, perplexed, but still very intrigued. Some thoughts that I had while reading were, it really feels like Suzanne Collins is being like, have you read the original trilogies? Do you remember that other people I released a couple years ago? References. So I'm understanding that perspective more now, finishing part 1. And something that I noticed that kind of rubbed me the wrong way was Snow's and Haymitch's interaction just did not track in my mind. As far as what I can remember from my original read and my reread of the original Hunger Games trilogy, Snow keeps his cards like really close to his chest when he talks to Katniss. Like, he definitely reveals some things and like is trying to be like, I'm a human, you're a human, like trying to do all that to manipulate her, but he doesn't really tell her that much. And I feel like his interaction with Haymitch before the games of being like, oh, these second names of these people in the covey and this and that and your girlfriend and oh, just be aware, love is fickle and fleeting. I just feel like it's unnatural for him and it doesn't track with his character. Like, he's 40 years older than he was in the prequel, so I feel like he should be closer to how he was in the original trilogies rather than in the other prequel. It just doesn't feel like it tracks. He was very stoic and like even-keeled in the trilogy, so it just feels weird that he's being so personable Like, he's still being manipulative and, like, keeping his cards to his chest and not revealing everything, but it feels like we're losing his character for the sake of making references to other books in this series, and I'm not a fan of that. Overall, the references to other works have been artistic, but that one just seemed a little bit like, that one just didn't track for me. And it was similar with Plutarch, where it's just, it keeps on bringing back Plutarch, where it's like, he's gonna be good. I'm also just confused a little bit by Snow's motivations. Like, does he already think that Haymitch has the same potential for inciting revolution like Lucy Gray did and like Katniss will? Is he that afraid of Haymitch? Is he that afraid of District 12 just in general? So I'm having thoughts and feelings, but overall I'm still very much enjoying it. I'm still very immersed and having a good time. I'm just a little, you know, like, there's some things that just aren't tracking for me. I feel like Snow shouldn't be revealing as much as he is, you know? And the reveal of Luella coming back at the very end of part 1 genuinely just made me go, I imagine the Capitol has crazy technology to keep people alive well into their late years and all these things, but like, why would they use their technology to just revive her? Like, is it just to manipulate Haymitch because now she's gonna have to die again? So I feel like it's her, but it's not gonna be her, so I'm just very curious to see how they're going to reconcile that in the start of part 2, because I know that she's gonna immediately be like, Haymitch is like, oh my god, she's back, but she's back. Without further ado, we're starting part 2 today, and unfortunately I cannot read until the sun sets today. I have other commitments. So we're gonna set a 1-hour timer and then just read until the timer ends. So 1-hour timer going. Let's do it to it. 2 thoughts. 1, Luella is definitely not Luella, as suspected. It is a fake Luella. That is what Haymitch is calling her. She is from District 11. That is what they're gathering, and has some kind of device on her chest pumping a drug into her, but she's been drugged and programmed to say that she's Luella McCoy, so she can go into the games and die as Luella, which is tragic. I will say, one thing that I feel like Suzanne is doing really good with is constantly bringing Haymitch's thoughts back to, I miss my girlfriend, I miss my girlfriend. Because if you were going to your death and you're 16 and you love someone, you're going to be thinking about them constantly. So I feel like it's good that Haymitch thinks about her every couple of pages, like 4 to 5 pages. It doesn't feel like too often, but it always feels appropriate when he does. It's very good characterization, and I'm a very big fan of that for Haymitch. It also just demonstrates this other side to him that we've never seen before, really, that like he can love someone and love them deeply until, you know, everything gets ripped away. It's also interesting, I forgot to mention this in part 1, Haymitch is so like I don't drink, I don't do this. We know all that's going to change, but it's just interesting to see the contrast in pre-Hunger Games, post-Hunger Games Haymitch. It's so fun and yay! Going to drown it. So this interaction here between Haymitch and Beetee after Wyrus has turned off the electricity in the Tribute's tower, quite interesting, honestly, that she was able to do that and then survive. It's giving more depth to Haymitch's plan, because even in Catching Fire, the couple-page description of Haymitch's games, Haymitch is very determined. He leaves and he just starts walking. And I guess that this, adding all of these previous victors, helping him along the way, it both ruins the illusion that Haymitch just wanted to figure something out all by himself and just was determined and just did it. It presents it in a different light that he had others helping him along the way, guiding him to be like, we're gonna try and do something big. It just changes the experience of how I perceived Haymitch's games, because I thought that he was a lone wolf doing this by himself. Obviously he had Maisie helping him eventually, but it's different, but I think overall I like it, that he's getting help from previous victors. It also gives more context to him and his friendship with all of these victors, because when Katniss eventually says, I like Mags and Beetee and Wyrus, and Haymitch is like, of course you do, because he likes them too, because Haymitch and Katniss are very similar. And saying that makes me realize that maybe Snow did see the eyes of revolution in Haymitch, like he saw in Lucy Gray, and saw it rightfully so in Katniss. Maybe if Haymitch's family hadn't been killed, it would have been a different story. Anyways, chapter 11. Okay, I just had a super morbid thought. So we know Luella obviously died, and now we have fake Luella. But I'm wondering, I feel like programming and finding the correct person to be the correct body double for a tribute would take some time. So now I'm wondering, does the Capitol have body doubles for all of the tributes? I imagine it would be weird in these more modern games for a tribute to be missing. I know that in the 10th, obviously some tributes died before it started, but that was before it had been more refined and whatnot. So I feel like if they did go in and there was only 47 tributes, it would be odd. So I'm just wondering, because the Capitol definitely picks out who they want the tributes to be, like, I feel like we're being spoon-fed that they pick out who they want every single year, and I'm wondering if, because they have basically a year to pick out who they want, do they also pick out their body doubles, get them ready, programmed, and have them ready in the basement, basically, at a moment's notice if things go awry? I'm almost certainly thinking too deeply about this, but, like, it could feasibly make some sense because the Capitol wants to maintain this authorial control over the people in the districts, and people being missing from the Hunger Games is questionable, especially when it's so widely broadcast and it's mandatory to watch it at this point. People being missing would raise some eyebrows, so I'm wondering, are there body doubles for everyone and they're ready to pull out at a moment's notice? Just gives me pause, you know? Of course we had to be introduced to Effie. Thoughts are, this book is still so fucking good. I am just absolutely amazed at Suzanne Collins' ability to just make it flow and just, I read for an hour and it doesn't even feel like it. There's 400 pages in this book, so we're just shy of 50% after 2 days, which is, damn. I feel like I will be finishing this book quite soon. The organization of this book is not what I initially expected, but it makes total sense and I'm enjoying it. But yeah, I will see you guys soon for the remainder of part 2. Alright. Hello. It's been a hot minute for me, but it's been, like, what, 5 seconds for you? So after the last reading session that I did on camera, I don't know what happened. I just kind of lost steam and stopped reading for a couple days until, like, a week later, and then I started reading a lot in the mornings. I now have 2 chapters left. But don't worry, we're not without my thoughts from all those chapters that I have not been recording myself, because I did record little memos. So before I get into reading the last 2 chapters, I'm actually going to revoice all of the thoughts that I left for myself in these memos. So without further ado, let's get into that. How did it take me until Lulu's death to realize that, oh my god, this is another instance of District 12 Victor taking in a child from District 11, just like Katniss did with Rue. That's so true. How did it take me until Lulu's death to realize the connection between Haymitch and Katniss, with how they both took a District 11 candidate who was 12 years old under their wing, and then they died on their watch. It's obviously a little different, like Katniss and Rue were planning a scheme, and Lulu ran into a bed of flowers and died. The fact that they both connected to a District 11 tribute, and then they died, and it was like, just, Her death is kind of, like, cheap to just be like, and no one killed her, and she didn't have to kill her. She just, like, ran into flowers and died from poison, which is like, yeah, the arena is full of poison, but it feels kind of cheap. Yeah, I agree with that. Good point, Past Shannon. I did find Lulu's death overall to be a little cheap. I thought that it was kind of lame that she died by poison and not by anyone actually killing her. I guess that it does make sense for her character, but it was also kind of saddening that, like, Haymitch didn't get a chance to protect her or anything from anyone. It was just, and she's dead. He obviously carried her body around and tried to make a poster, but I feel like it would have been different if she had been murdered by someone, you know? It's like I'm being spoon-fed, like, this is what he's thinking, this is what he's feeling, or it's like, I keep this attitude and stuff like that. Like, it just, I understand that this is why I'm probably looking at it with, like, too critical of eyes, but, like, I don't know, display their emotions and these things like that, and just use the words, you know, and use the actions and the descriptions rather than saying, like, I do this. So it does feel like things are being spoon-fed to me a little bit. Now I'm enjoying just being in Haymitch's head. The feeling of being spoon-fed throughout the entire novel has continued. It does make sense in a way because the novel is YA and it is aimed at a younger demographic. I have consistently felt like, man, I'm just being told how he feels rather than being shown or him speaking it, you know? And I did find it surprising that Wyatt, the odds maker, died in the bloodbath. That was surprising and sad. I fully expected Lulu to die in the bloodbath, so when she made it out, I was like, okay. And I thought that it was kind of lame that the game makers were the one who sent her to Haymitch. I really was hopeful that Wyatt was the one who sent her, but no, it was just the game makers trying to, like, fuck shit up for Haymitch. And it's like, just lame. It could have meant so much more, but it didn't. So this was a particularly poignant quote that I liked. It was on page 234. I lie gasping on the ground, examining my body for wounds. There's absolutely nothing. Not a blister, not a scratch. Only the memory of the terrible pain. It's talking about trauma and how trauma might not
physically manifest anywhere on your body. Hi, Kiki. But it still is with you forever. And shit hits hard.
Starting part 3, thoughts. After Haymitch fails his attempt to break the arena, it feels a little too on the nose that the game makers were immediately like, turn the mountain into a volcano, turn the mountain into a volcano. It feels almost like Haymitch has too much of an impact on these games, but yeah. I mean, if I were the game makers, I would definitely do the same thing. I would definitely turn a mountain into a volcano if some kind of flood happened that you weren't expecting to happen. Pulls the eyes away from the forest and towards the mountain, so it's a smart move. And then it's juxtaposed by this immediate paragraph of Haymitch talking down on himself when he's been so cocky and high and mighty and like such a high ego for so long. Like, it makes sense. It was all front. But like, he's just immediately like, who do I think I am? Like, who am I? And it's just, I don't know, the game makers are doing all these things because of you. You are doing a lot of like big things. I understand that it's supposed to be like ego death and his just realization that like I'm not as strong and important as I thought I was, but like it's interesting because actually you are, but then also it feels like such a drastic shift from this. But then I also understand because, like, if you have this huge inflated sense of self, of course, it's all just a front and you don't actually feel it that way. You think you're small. It was just a little jarring.
I agree. The start of part 3, immediately with the volcano, was a little unexpected, but we obviously learned later that it wasn't quite a volcano, like, the effects were different than normal lava. It did feel like the game makers, like, targeted on Haymitch and were like, he's the main character. We need to do everything we can to stop him.
Editing Shan here to say, I think that the reason the game makers were so honed in on Haymitch was because he was not part of their plan. I don't think that they expected him to be in the games. Like, he wasn't reaped normally. He was handpicked after a riot. He labels himself a rascal, but maybe he actually is a rascal to the game makers because of the manner in which he got reaped.
It feels like he has so much plot armor and just he's perfect in so many ways. Like, I'm still thinking back to training and he was like perfect at knife throwing, perfect at this and that, and then there was like one thing that he wasn't good at. It just feels a little bit too much like he's amazing and he's gonna win and he's the best. He has this inflated sense of self, and when it actually comes down to it, he does not think that highly of himself. That is the truth, and people who have this big ego, it is all just a show. But it was still very jarring to be like, I'm a hotshot, I'm a rascal, all these things, and then immediately like, who do I think I am? I don't know anything. All right, let's continue hearing from past Shannon. What do you have to say now?
The end of part 2, when Ampert died. We all know Ampert is gonna die. Like, everyone has to die, except for Haymitch. That's the rule of this. Ooh. His death hit. It was sad. It was very sad.
I just feel so bad for Beatty. You don't even get a body to bury, you just have the skeleton. That's heartbreaking. It still did feel awfully plot armory, though, the manner in which Ampert died.
But what was confusing was that the squirrel mutts didn't even attack Haymitch.
This is a big thing that I continue to feel. The fact that there were mutts that targeted Ampert, and later there's mutts that targeted Maisie, but there were no mutts that were like programmed to target Haymitch. In later games, the mutts attacked everyone indiscriminately, right? Am I wrong? Were there mutts that were programmed for people? Please correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm forgetting someone and there have been mutts that are programmed for one person and they leave everyone else alone, please correct me. I think my mic is too good and you guys can't hear this, but my cats are playing like literally 3 feet away from me. Mo is winning.
I think it's a very interesting choice to now shift Haymitch's focus from being that of survival and solo to maybe I can die for someone else. And I know that that's just going to make his win even more tragic. It's an interesting choice and not one that I expected to be made for his character.
I do think that it makes sense for his character, though, for him to shift from being, I just need to survive, to I'm going to try and make someone else win. He doesn't have the best vision of himself, so he wants to help someone else win. It does make sense.
The line of, will she be haunted by me, in reference to Lenore Dove outliving him. Obviously, he's going to be haunted by her, so.
Is my death going to haunt her? Am I going to haunt her? And knowing that, no, you're going to be haunted by all of your ghosts for at least 24, 25 years until, I feel like the ambiance of Kiki is adding to it. If you guys can't hear it, this is really funny though. Here, wait, I'm gonna let you guys hear it for a second. They stopped as soon as I brought the mic to them. No, yeah, it just makes sense. It just makes sense.
Chapter 20, and this is where it's like the first time that we're seeing something that we've actually seen before. Like,
I was making my cat's dinner in this clip, so I apologize for any sounds you may hear.
Propagandized version that we saw in Catching Fire was truly just the very beginning and then post breaking the arena, which is like kind of terrifying, but it makes sense that they're like, they don't want to show the parts where it's not looking so good for them.
And obviously, later on, Haymitch discusses this when he's having his interview with Caesar Flickerman, where he's like, this is my games. And he actually gives his feedback about how his games are going to be portrayed and how Katniss and Peeta will eventually see it. And it's like, this is his raw reaction. These are his thoughts. And you're like, oh God, you're not going to enjoy this. And this is how your games are going to be remembered. Oh, this is how we know about your games. We're victims of propaganda too.
The lines where like Maisie and Haymitch team up is pretty cute. I like it. It's like, oh, we're here, we're seeing this, and now she's obviously gonna die, which isn't great, but like, oh, it's also sad. He obviously killed people, but like, it's neat. It's like, you're like, I know that part.
It was super neat to get to the part where you're like, oh my God, I know these exact lines of dialogue from Catching Fire. When Maisie and Haymitch finally meet up, it was pretty cool to see that. And then obviously thinking, oh my God, that means she's gonna die in like 2 pages, but obviously a lot more happened that we did not know about with the hedgehog and everything. Again, victims of propaganda. Yay.
So the reveal in which how Haymitch won, which is obviously the axe thrown off, boom, down, all that stuff, but
Yes,
then
we know.
immediately the bomb afterwards,
Yeah.
really drives home that any and all preconceived notions that the Capitol has total control over the districts and has total control over the games is bullshit. Thought that, well, the 74th Hunger Games must be just an outlier and they must always have really good control of everything. We've now seen the 10th, where like things went to shit. We're now seeing the 50th, where things really went to shit, and the 74th, where like the ending went to shit, and the 75th, where everything went to shit.
I'm sure I'm not the only one who had a preconceived notion that the Capitol was always in control for every single games, and that they have this sense of control over everything, and that everything is orchestrated perfectly. It's displayed that way in the original trilogy, so you think they're controlling everything, it's in total control, and then the 74th Hunger Games just blows that up. But that's just bullshit. That's all a lie, as we saw in the 10th, 50th, 74th, 75th Hunger Games. Now, the common thread between all those is obviously someone from District 12 fucking shit up. So is it just like when District 12 tributes fuck shit up, things go crazy, and are all the other games normal? Or do things go to shit constantly?
Editing Shan popping in to say, how did I not think about Virus's games? We just got like a full description of her arena and how her strategy also fucked things up. So it's not just District 12, it's also the 49th Hunger Games.
But I'm wondering, does every games have some rebellion in it? Does every games, is there a bit of like chaos in every single games? Because like the game makers just like being in the fucking arena during the 50th games, what the fuck is that? It just has me rethinking this entire idea that the Capitol is perfect and pristine and always in control. Because I'm thinking, if you think they're in control, then they're in control. But really, they're not. They're hanging on by a thread.
History is written by the winners, and if you're in power, you get to decide what truth is. That is what the Capitol embodies.
Everything we thought we knew from Catching Fire, you know, it was all smoke and mirrors, it was all lies. And I think that a reason that they refused to show his allyship with Ampert and Lulu is because
I can take it away from here. I think that it's so interesting that when we get to see Haymitch's perspective of watching the playback of his games, and they don't show the camaraderie and the partnership that he had with Ampert, is almost certainly because the Capitol does not want to show to the districts that there can be camaraderie between districts, because that promotes an uprising. But they're willing to show his connection to Maisie Lee because she's a fellow District 12 person, but he can't be friends with people who are not from his district. That's not allowed in the Capitol's world.
what the fuck, Snow? What is that line? Enjoy your homecoming because everyone's dead, you absolute fucker.
I don't know this yet. We're about to find this out, but it makes me think that everyone's already dead. They've already killed everyone. Or they're all gonna be killed right when he gets back. Oh God, that'd be worse. It's one thing to be like, to just learn that everyone's dead, and it's another to see everyone die. Oh God. Well, time to find out. It's time for chapter 26 and the end of the novel. I'm scared. Okay, that is so fucked up that the other District 12 tributes weren't buried and they're all gonna have to go back to their district together. It's definitely psychological torture, but what? It's interesting to see him thinking about Lucy Gray Baird and what her ending was. I am personally of the belief that Snow didn't kill her and that she got away somehow. Did she die soon after? Maybe. But I refuse to subscribe to the belief that Snow killed her. I don't want that to be her ending. I just don't want it to be, okay? I allow myself to believe that I have really come home. His line to Katniss about never getting off the train is hitting really hard right now. Oh, so Haymitch does get to be there for when his family dies. Literally burning the house as he returns? That's so fucked up. What the fuck? Maisie Lee's line about setting fire to the Victor's Village hits a little harder now. And I guess now we also see why he lives in the Victor's Village, because his house is soot. Yay.
I feel like we already knew that Katniss's dad was a good singer, but it's beautiful to see that 40 years on after Lucy Gray Baird's death/disappearance, her songs are still being sung. Obviously, they're going to disappear 24 years from now, but it's nice to know that they lived on for a while. Okay, the fact that we're seeing Lenore Dove out of prison and Haymitch is going to go get to talk to her concerns me deeply. So he kills her. That's so fucked up. What? What? Oh my god. So I feel icky, and I'm pissed that this is how Lenore Dove dies. I mean, it makes sense. Snow is all about poison. Her last line is very cryptic, obviously on purpose, but don't you let it rise on the reaping, while pointing at the sun, which is obviously where the title of the book comes from, Sunrise on the Reaping. That's her way of saying, end the Hunger Games, which is a very good thing to, like, be your ending message, is to say, take down the authoritarian regime. Like, yeah, I support that. It just feels like too poetic when you're dying from asphyxiation and poison and, you know, damn, what a way to go. I hate this. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. But, like, in a way that I deeply respect the writing, and this makes total sense for the story, but I hate it, you know? It's a little too on the nose that Haymitch literally throws rocks at people who try to get close to him. It's obviously an effective manner of preventing yourself from having any human relationships, but, like, man. Oh my god. We see Lucy Gray's tombstone. Although her headstone is there, that doesn't necessarily mean that she's buried there, but I wonder if she is. I wonder if they did find her body and buried her there. Something to think about. Damn, okay, here I was reading chapter 27 thinking that this was like years of his life, of just pushing away all of his friends and drinking himself to sleep and waking up in random parts of town, but the Victor's tour hasn't even happened yet. Shit. It's interesting to me that Plutarch has apparently always been so set on a rebellion, and that he's now trying to recruit Haymitch to join this. It's interesting. I have thoughts, but they're not fully formed yet.
Editing Shan and back. The thoughts are fully formed now. I have to shout out Reads with Rachel and her video on Sunrise on the Reaping that got my gears turning, but Plutarch is fully a manipulative, like, I'm gonna benefit off the system and I'm in this cushy life, but I still want a rebellion. I'm gonna push for that, gonna try for that, but not actually put myself too far out there and actually risk anything. I really need to either reread the books or rewatch the movies. Hi Kiki. I'm definitely gonna be rewatching the movies soon. I think that that's gonna give me a decent refresher on why he feels so icky, because I remember him being kind of confusing and a little icky feeling in the original trilogy. He's very much in a privileged position who says he wants rebellion and an uprising and a new regime, but he's not willing to really stick his neck out at all. It makes sense in a way. Self-preservation, he'll get poisoned if he does anything, and he was important and he was a very vital part of the revolution, but it's still very icky and I don't like it. Okay, say bye, Kiki.
I make no plans, have no hopes, keep no company, speak to no human being except old Bascom Pie when my nepenthe runs low, but I can't say I have no future, because I know that every year for my birthday I will get a new pair of tributes, one girl and one boy, to mentor to their deaths, another sunrise on the reaping. And when I remember that, I hear Sid's voice, waking me the morning that raven first tapped on my chamber door. Happy birthday, Haymitch. That's so fucked up. Now we have the epilogue. I'm so curious what it's gonna be. It's like 2 pages, but before even looking at it, I hope that it's like the 74th Reaping, maybe? Yeah, that's what I want it to be. Okay, let's read. That was the perfect ending. Ah! Oh my god. I liked that epilogue. I'm glad that it wasn't just the morning of the 74th Hunger Games. Oh, they're gonna die. I like that we saw a retrospective on Katniss, the one who was luckier, the one who was able to stop the sun from rising on the reaping. I'm glad that he found peace after the war, because he deserves that. I really did not expect to cry. Lenore Dove's death did hit hard. Wow, that was very artistic. Overall, I am very happy with this book. I obviously made my nitpicks throughout and still feel like there were moments where I felt like things were a little spoon-fed. It was a lot of telling and not showing in some instances, especially those last chapters there was a lot of telling. But I still think that the overall story was beautiful, and I'm very happy with the end. The epilogue end. The end of chapter 27 sucks ass. The end of chapter 26 sucks even more, but the epilogue makes me smile. And cry, obviously. Moving forward, I really hope that the next prequel book, because there's definitely going to be a third one, is about the Dark Days. I really hope that we get a book about the Dark Days, and we get an origin story of how did we get here. I saw a post online a while ago where it was comparing the prequels to the original trilogy, and we had first book, Hunger Games and the Ballad, regular Hunger Games. Then we have Catching Fire and Sunrise on the Reaping, Corridor Quells, and then we have Mockingjay and Mystery, maybe Revolution. Like, I
personally dig that. It would obviously mess with the timeline a little bit because we have 10th, 50th, and then going back in time further. But I think that that would make the most interesting story, and then I'm gonna pre-order anything that she writes. I'm gonna buy any book that she writes about Hunger Games. I love this world. I love learning more about it. I think that it's fascinating. It shows so much about our own world and our ability to fall for propaganda, and how whatever regime is in power seems like it's always going to be in power and always has been in power, and nothing can be done to change that. And if you think that something is true, then that becomes the truth. I think Suzanne Collins is amazing at writing political commentary books that poke at the real world, but not too much. I would give this 4.25 stars out of 5, and I am now going to go back and rewatch all of the movies. The Hunger Games itches a certain part of my brain, and I love it. I'll read anything that Suzanne Collins writes in this series, but I really hope that the next prequel is the Dark Days book. That is a wrap on this reading vlog. Thank you guys so much for coming along with me. I do apologize for a big part of the middle. We had to have conversations with past Shannon about how she was feeling. I'm currently in school for a paralegal certificate, but that ends at the end of this month in April. And once that is out of the way, I'm going to have a lot more time and brain space to be able to read more. That is all to say, future reading vlog videos will include less conversations with past Shannon. March 18th wasn't just Sunrise on the Reaping Day, it was also Everything is Tuberculosis Day by John Green. I have been very excited to read this, and since I finished Sunrise, this is what's next on my TBR. So I will see you guys in 2 weeks with another reading vlog about Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. I'll see you guys then. Bye-bye!